If you want to grow fruits, vegetables, or nuts on a commercial basis in the United States, you need to have soil, sun, seeds, water, and honeybees. Millions and millions of honeybees trucked in from all over the country to pollinate the crops. Honeybees are the unsung heroes of the food chain, crucial to the production of 1/3 of all the foods we eat. So when billions of bees began to mysteriously disappear last year, there was plenty of concern and no shortage of theories blaming everything from cell phones to divine rapture. None of the usual explanations seem to fit. Some of the nation's top scientists are trying to understand the phenomenon. But no one is more immersed in the mystery than the man who is widely credited with discovering it. Welcome to Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. Population 6,000 people and 88 million bees, enough to sting every resident of New York, California, and Texas combined. The bees belong to David Hackenberg and his family, who have been keeping them for almost a half a century.
It's the most unique thing in nature there is. I mean, you stick your head inside that beehive. You know, it's something about bees that it just makes the rest of the world just seem to go away.
You get along with them?
Get along fine with them.
The bees make plenty of honey, but most of the money comes from loading 2,200 hives onto flatbed trucks and renting them to farmers all over the country. On this particular day, their services were desperately needed in Maine, where mile upon mile of wild blueberries were in bloom, just waiting to be pollinated. 30 years ago, a good-sized blueberry farm was 500 acres. Today, a large commercial operation can run to 10,000 acres, and there are simply not enough honeybees in Maine to do the work. On average, Hackenberg and his bees log 60,000 miles a year on the road, wintering in Florida to work citrus and cantaloupe, then back north in the spring for apples and cherries, maybe even to California for the almond crop. He's just a small part of an industry that pollinates 90 different crops worth an estimated $15 billion, and most people don't even know it exists. In a good year, he can make $100,000 profit, but this past year has been a financial disaster, and it all began one afternoon last November when he checked on some of his hives in Florida.
When I pulled into a bee yard in Florida, there was 400 hives of bees that 3 weeks before that looked great. And all of a sudden, here we got roughly 400 beehives that are totally empty.
The bees were all gone?
They're gone.
I mean, where'd they go?
Don't know. I mean, I literally got down and crawled around. I mean, seriously, I got down on my hands and knees and crawled around. And then there's no dead bees. There are no dead bees anywhere. I mean, you can't find any bees. They flew off someplace.
And never came back?
Never came home.
Had you ever seen that before?
No.
Under normal circumstances, bees don't get lost. They have a sophisticated navigation system that uses the sun and landmarks as points of reference. As this European documentary shows, they can travel up to 2 miles in search of food, then find their way back home by following the unique smell of their hive. And once there, they're able to direct other bees to their food source by doing what entomologists call the dance, one of the most intricate languages in nature. Gabe, I've done a lot of things. I've never done this.
Yeah, there's worse things, I think.
Within a few months, Hackenberg had lost 2/3 of his bees. He and his son Davey began calling the Department of Agriculture and beekeepers around the country to see if they were having similar problems. And within a matter of weeks, he discovered that many of them were. First, Hackenberg showed us what a normal hive looks like.
Yeah, how many bees live in this hive?
This hive here, just looking at it, probably got close to 40,000 bees in it.
Then he showed us a hive that's suffering from what scientists are now calling colony collapse disorder, or CCD.
I mean, there's no reason this time of year a hive of bees should look like this.
Not only were there no bees, the hive was filled with eggs and larvae. Bees almost never leave their young. The hive was also filled with honey that not even scavengers seemed to want.
Under normal circumstances in a dead beehive, other bees would have been coming in robbing honey out. And the honey wasn't even, there was no bees even bothering. I mean, just, it was like a ghost town.
Like something had happened to the hive and the other bees knew it.
That's right.
They didn't want to go back in.
Nobody wanted to touch it.
Since Hackenberg made his discovery, 1/3 of the honeybees in the country have either died off or disappeared. Some beekeepers have lost up to 90% of their hives. The Department of Agriculture has set up a working group of scientists from 6 universities, the Department of Defense, and the Environmental Protection Agency to try and isolate the cause. Jeff Pettis of the Agriculture Department is leading the effort.
What do you think the problem is?
I think the problem is complicated. I don't think it's going to come down to a single factor, that we're not going to be able to pin all of these losses on either one factor or even maybe one combination of factors.
Autopsies of bees remaining in the collapsed hives have confirmed what scientists have long suspected, that honeybees in general are not in good health and are afflicted with all sorts of ailments. Their systems have been weakened by mites and other parasites, by poor nutrition, and exposure to pesticides. And scientists at Columbia University have detected the presence of a virus that seems to be prevalent in the collapsed hives.
This virus is associated with colonies that are in poor health, but we don't have any cause and effect yet. What we have is that it seems to be a marker, an indicator that colonies are in trouble.
So you don't know whether the virus is causing the problem or is a symptom of the problem?
Exactly. It could be the straw that broke the camel's back. It could also just be an indicator that these bees are under stress, and that's allowing this virus to grow.
We know we've had viruses for years, but all of a sudden something has made everything kind of go haywire.
And you think it was?
I think the insecticides are breaking down the immune system.
Hackenberg says most beekeepers believe the culprit is a relatively new type of pesticide called neonicotinoids, a synthetic chemical based on nicotine. They're now used almost everywhere, from cornfields to golf courses, and on anything from the front lawn to the family pet. They're thought to be much safer for human animals than other pesticides, yet still toxic enough to kill insects.
Well, basically, the manufacturers of this product says it breaks down their immune system, causes memory loss, causes nervous system disorders, and causes the insects to quit feeding.
And you think that that's what's happened to the bees?
That's exactly what we're seeing happen inside of these honeybee colonies.
Bayer Crop Science, a leading manufacturer of neonicotinoids, denies that the pesticide is responsible for colony collapse, and it cites studies which support that conclusion. Other studies done by the French government and protests by French beekeepers caused the pesticide to be partially banned there. Besides the pesticides, parasites, and pathogens, scientists are looking into the bees' diet and environmental stresses as contributing factors. Development has reduced natural habitat, clearing thousands of acres of clover and flowers. Instead, the bees are now spending week after week on the road, feeding on a single crop, undernourished and overworked.
Doesn't bother the bees to spend that much time on the road?
Well, I'm not sure if it bothers them or not. You know, it's got to be stressful. I mean, everything we do has got to be stressful. But we've been doing this for, for 30 years.
Trying to recreate colony collapse disorder in healthy hives in order to try and determine what's triggering it.
Well, go get the truck and get back.
But the seasons don't wait for science. With losses mounting and contracts to fill, the Hackenbergs decided to borrow hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy new bees and rebuild the hives.
Did you think about giving up, quitting?
Oh, yeah. I thought about it.
And why didn't you?
Well, I got a lot of farmers out there depend on it.
Congress is expected to fund additional bee research with the new Farm Bill, but hardly anyone is talking about helping out the beekeepers, who David Hackenberg calls the ugly stepchildren of agriculture. He told us the cold weather this fall and winter will pose a crucial test for him and for his bees.
What happens if you have another big die-off?
I'm probably out of business.
What would you do?
I don't know. It's all I've done in my life.
If there's another big die-off of bees, some beekeepers, maybe many beekeepers, are going to go out of business.
And what does that do to vegetables and fruits in the supermarket?
We won't have the quality fruits. We may not have the quantity of fruits and vegetables. And this could mean higher prices at the grocery store, and it'll hit the public directly.
Just yesterday, the farm manager of one of the largest blueberry companies in the United States called me to see, how are you doing? How are the bees doing, they're concerned because, they need these bees next year, I mean, we got through this year, but what's going to happen next year?
And you don't know?
That's right, we don't know. Nobody knows.